So we had our first shoulder pad practice today, which was exciting that we could actually practice, and it's always enjoyable to get out there and let the guys play real football. So we had a long practice, and the effort's good, enthusiasm's good, which is typical for this time of year. We need to maintain. Guys are excited about being out there. There's not really any changes personnel-wise. I mean, we've just been in pads one day, but everything's going good. As I said a few days ago, I really like our staff. I like how they're coming together as a group and working, and we've got a long ways to go. This is a somewhat unusual season in the standpoint of we have some really experienced players at key positions, and then we have players that don't have any experience at all at key positions. So I had somebody ask me yesterday what I'm most looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the first game to kind of see what happens with our plans and schemes and concepts that we think give us the best chance for success.
Question. Sometimes you kind of forget to appreciate what you have, but with the weather you dealt with this morning, how appreciative were you? Because you not only had your team, but you had all the extreme campers.
Right.
And you probably made a few changes, but that seemed like a comfortable practice considering.
I would have rather practiced outside some in the rain, but the lightning sent us indoors. And to your point, years ago we'd have had to shut it down, and it would have disrupted today, which has to be on time with our fans and you guys, and it's a very busy day for us, for everybody. So we adjusted some of what we needed to do in practice to where we could fit inside, and then once we got the 30-minute horn from somewhere in downtown, I don't know who blows the horn and says you're clear, then we could go back to normal practice. So it's very beneficial for us to have the facility that allows us to continue with practice.
Also, you had Mike Defee here today, and I couldn't help but notice he can't help himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he goes out there and in street clothes and starts working like a referee, and and he talked to your team before the practice. That has to be a benefit.
It was really beneficial. I'm concerned about the new targeting rule more so this year than ever, and so we had him come in and spend time with our staff. Well, the team first this morning for 30 minutes, and then our staff for a couple hours this afternoon. And he's really a class guy. He's very knowledgeable and easy to work with. So he comes out and watches practice, and it's interesting. He gets right into watching things that he would watch in a game, and he's actually going over and correcting some things with the players. He's trying to help everybody, and the coaches in this league have a great relationship with him. So I thought it was a good move for us to get him in here today.
Mike, you said something very good called Media Day. We're talking about Spencer and his year spent redshirting and just how much he maybe, I don't think you said didn't know what he didn't know, but just the learning that he did. As you've now got to see him in practice situations, are there things now tangibly you can say, this is different than what he was doing a year ago, how that year changed him?
His ability to function in our system is better than it was a year ago. We still haven't done enough in pads, but just executing our offense and running a system at such a high speed like we do, our tempo, he's already better. He's got a long ways to go in areas that we all know that quarterbacks need to adjust, and unfortunately a lot of times at that position you really only learn from mistakes. And so he's better at just the structure and organizing our system and getting everybody up there, and if they're lined up wrong, making sure that the clock's not going to expire on him for the delay of game, getting everybody adjusted, getting it lined up, getting our signals, and functioning in a really fast pace. That's where he's improved at this point.
What do you expect from Chuba this season, and just how different is it for him going into the season being an established guy?
Chuba looks really good. For me personally as a coach, you're always careful to really step out there, but I mean, he's about as pretty as they get. You know, he's 208, 210 pounds, and I don't know how fast he is, but he's really fast. He's very determined. He's very intelligent. He understands. When we lost Justice last year, it was difficult for us because we lost a great player. But as I said earlier, now it benefited us because he had to play in some really key games. So I'm also excited about watching him play. And I mean, he's really just kind of scratched the surface with his body and what he can do and what he can bring to the table. The area that he's improved as much as any is just his leadership and his willingness to work extremely hard. One thing I noticed in practice yesterday, and I didn't say anything about it, so I just kind of watched it today, and it reminded me of guys back when I practiced. When he takes the ball in practice from the 40-yard line, when we're in a tag period where we're not tackling, he runs all the way to the goal line every time. And I hadn't seen that in years. So that's encouraging. Now, we could get back to how many steps he takes a day at practice. That could be a little bit of an issue. But I would rather back him off than have to kick him into the fight. So we're really excited about him at this point.
You've got L.D. Brown as something of an established guy behind him.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to figure out who that number 3 guy is going to be to help you out there?
LD's done really well. He's come a long way. He's a really good example of just years and maturity. And if those guys stay healthy through camp, they'll be a good package. Dez is behind him. DeAndrick is further behind. He's got a ways to go. Jeter looks really good. I mean, I don't know if y'all have seen Jeter or paid attention to him, but you know, he was a little bit soft looking at this time last year. He was a little heavy. He got up around 227 pounds. I think he's closer to 215 now, and he looks slim. And so he's starting to mature a little bit and grow up. I'm comfortable with all those guys carrying the ball. And behind Shu, right now we don't know, but those guys that we have behind him, at this point I'm comfortable. Ball security is very important. That's one thing we don't know yet because they haven't been out in the game and been hit when they're tired. That'll be important. You know, if you want to carry the ball or touch the ball in this offense, you have to take care of the ball. So they have a skill set. They just need some reps and to continue to work hard. But I feel comfortable with that position.
Everybody in the building would like you to name a quarterback. You'd like to know who your quarterback is, but at what point, Mike, in the camp schedule do you just say, all right, I got to do this. I got to pull the trigger on a decision?
It might not. We might play 2. You know, if you were at practice today, you'd say play 2. So they're both pretty good. They're both pretty good. And I know people say, well, sometimes if you can't name one, you don't have any. I don't see that as the situation here. And I would tell you, I mean, you guys can go back on my track record in naming quarterbacks. I don't wait any longer than I have to because I don't want to mess with it. If we knew who our guy was, not necessarily because one's not performing any better than the other, but because I think it helps the team to know who their quarterback is. It certainly helps us as coaches from a rep standpoint. You watched us practice enough. So, I mean, we're through the first padded practice, and as of now, we play 2.
On what basis? I mean, how would that look? By possession?
I got no idea. I'm not, you know, that's one thing I don't have to get into. You know how you avoid things like you know, with your wife, you know, you're like, I don't want to get into that unless I absolutely have to get into that. That's kind of what I'm doing right now.
How do those 2 feel about potentially both getting?
Haven't had a discussion with them. What we've asked them to do, Jenny, is compete and prepare and be good leaders and develop a working relationship. You know, Sean is an interesting person. You know, he's a really nice guy and all that, but he's got a little bit of the dogfight in him. He wants those guys to really compete, which, I mean, I was unaware of that. I just listened to him when he's coaching, and I'm guessing somebody said he even said it to the media, which I'm okay with. It's his job. It's his position. He has to do whatever he thinks is best to get the most out of those two guys. I will say this, they're both really quality young men. They're handling it the right way. They're competing, and they're being very supportive, and the team is helping them. So you have issues with that overall with the team when you're dealing with a quarterback. You know, running backs, wideouts, O-line, D-line, linebackers, people just don't pay as much attention. But when you talk about quarterbacks, you're essentially affecting everybody on the team. So they're doing very well. And I'm not saying we're going to play 2. All I'm saying is, as of today, that's what would happen. We have however many days till we play a game, so it could change. But they're both working hard. It's not disruptive to the team. That's something that I look for, and the guys are handling it really well.
A lot of times you play 2 quarterbacks. One brings different skill sets than the others. Are they both similar in what they can do?
They
or
are.
One better than one, something better than the other?
Yeah, this is not a Rudolph and JW. This is they're both, their skill set's very similar.
So speaking of that, Mike, how do you balance, you talked earlier about the only way to learn for quarterbacks is playing through mistakes. Neither of those guys have played here. How do you balance the need for them to play through mistakes with also the need for the coaches and the teammates to gain trust in them? How do you balance that?
Difficult. It goes back to what I said from the beginning. As soon as one of them gives us any indication and a feel that they can help us perform to the highest level to give us a chance to win, we will name them that, just because of what you're talking about. You get into a lot of different things that I don't want to get into right now because it keeps me up at night, is if you put one in and you're playing 2, when do you alternate them? What if he makes a mistake? Does he get to go back in? One guy might play good for 2 quarters. The other guy goes in and plays good. Who plays in the 4th quarter? There's so many different scenarios, and I don't have an answer for that right now. We have a plan, but we don't have the answer, and fortunately, we don't really need to worry about it for another couple weeks. And then we really have to start to make a decision on what we're going to do, and if it is 2, how we're going to do it. Because now, going into the game, for me, every coach is different. I want to be fair. I want both young men to have an opportunity, so I don't want them to go out and play scared. You can't play quarterback in this offense and play scared. You're going to make mistakes because we throw the ball down the field so many times. So eventually something bad's going to happen. So what? We don't want guys to play with fear. We want them to be relentless and be gunslingers. So we try to avoid what you're saying. Do we have all the answers right now? Probably not. But if the time comes, we'll have an answer or a plan for it.
Answers aside, can you see these 2 guys, you've had them around your program now for a year, can you see that these 2 guys have the personality? You know, because it takes some mental toughness to be in a 2 quarterback situation and A, stomach it, and B, not press, not feel the need to press because you know, hey, coach has got my back. Are you comfortable with their mental discipline?
Well, I think, 1, I don't think they have a choice. And 2, I think we have to lay it out for them. And I think that's part of our job as coaches is to make sure everybody's on the same page so we can avoid what you're talking about. Otherwise, guys will play tentative. Can't play tentative in this offense. Got to go. Got to go play.
Out of those 2 QBs, which one reminds you of the way you played when you were under center?
Me? Oh, those guys aren't near as good as I was. You know, these guys nowadays are so much further along. You know, part of the stress you have, even in this conference, and the defenses take a lot of hits and the coordinators take a lot of hit in this league, which is fine. But the quarterback's mental capability nowadays, these guys are so much further ahead than we ever were. They know as much as coaches do. They can come in here and direct a scheme, and they understand, they get it. When we played, we only did what they told us to do, and that was it, to a certain extent. So they're much further ahead mentally than we ever were. That's why they can move the ball so well in this conference, because all they need to know is what the defense is doing, and once they figure it out, they can start to dissect it pretty good. And these guys are further along than I ever was as a player. Their competitiveness, their nature, their toughness, their willingness to do whatever it takes to be successful, we don't know yet because they haven't been out there.
How much does the future of your program or the longevity of that quarterback factor into your decision? Does it factor into your decision?
You're talking about because Spencer's younger?
I'm just saying in years to come, or, building your program, possibly around one.
Yeah, we have to play the best player. And, there's so many ways to look at this, and there's so many different opinions on this. And I'm not saying that most of them probably aren't correct, but for me and Sean, we have to play the guy that we think that gives us the best chance to score points and win the first game, whoever that may be. Not necessarily worry about the future, okay? So I know kind of what you're referring to. People say if everything's close, just play the younger player and you can build on it. That doesn't always mean he gives us the best chance to win the next game, okay? So age is really out at this point. It's who gives us the best chance to be successful at Oregon State. That's really what we're concerned with at this time.
You talk about things that keep you up at night. When's the last time you remember having to give this much thought and energy to a quarterback battle?
I haven't, because I always named one. We named, and I've done this now, I'm kind of repeating myself, but we named Lunt when, if we wouldn't have, nobody would have said anything. We named Corn last year. I don't know who else we named. But it's okay. I mean, we live in a world with, there's a lot going on, social media, and you guys work full-time, and everybody's on edge, and with the internet and resources out there. So it's just part of it. And Robert asked about the mental approach of Drew and Spencer. They're going to have to get ready for that anyway. I mean, it's mild compared to what they'll go through to play quarterback at this level. They have to have thick skin, just like being a coach. Everybody's got an opinion. A lot of them are probably right. But we have to do the best we can. They're going to have to do the best they can. But we certainly haven't had to deal with much of this over the years. And that's the reason why I don't waste any time naming a starter.
You touched on some of the changes to the targeting rule, and obviously a lot of people around here joke that it's the Tylan Wallace rule because of some of the crackback blocks that he had last year. They'd be penalized this year. How has he adjusted to what he's going to have to do now when he's blocking with this new rule in place?
There's the NCAA has a teaching tape out that the officials are using, and I saw it when I was out in Phoenix in May, and so we asked them to show our team and our coaches, which they're willing to do. The officials are just simply the messengers. They're getting their command and their rules from higher up, and they're only the ones. They're just saying, hey, this is what we're told to call during the year. So Tylan was a good example because he had 2 or 3 of those blocks, which they categorize as launching your body to somewhat of a defenseless player on the field. And that's why, I don't know if it's because of him, but they've used his videos on the example. I'm concerned with it because I think they're making a point. I think they've been told that if you use the crown of your helmet, anybody on the field at any time, which players that get to our level tackle in high school a lot with the top of their head. Now, we teach them not to, but they, especially when 2 players are coming near each other and they start to lower their shoulders and head, even an offensive player, and they use that crown, they've really made a point this year that if you ever use the crown on your head based on a couple other criteria, you can be ejected. They really haven't done that much unless it's been head-to-head. So now they're saying it can really be anywhere. If you can get a hold of that video and you watch it, it takes about 17 and a half minutes. You would understand the rule a lot better. I know it helps me. they showed a guy that tackled a quarterback, and he came through on a quarterback, and as soon as the quarterback let go of the ball, and he form tackled him kind of like what you would be coached to do, and his helmet hit the quarterback in the stomach area, but he used some of the crown of his head, and they said he's ejected this year. So I'm just concerned about it because and we're trying to coach it right now to avoid it, and maybe I'm overreacting, but I know that after playing in the bowl game and having a couple players ejected, it makes me really nervous.
Like he told the extreme camp guys that after a third target, you miss a full game.
You miss the game you're in. You target in the first quarter, you miss that game, and then you miss a whole nother game.
Is that new? That part of it? Yeah.
And they're all reviewable now, even if it's not thrown on the field. From what I understand, if somebody up here or Dallas or wherever sees it, they can stop the game, buzz down and stop the game and review it. And if they missed it and they see it, he can still be ejected. So and I'm not trying to officiate. I'm just trying to avoid, I guess, not a catastrophe, but things that could really affect a game. And I'm also a little concerned about reviews. So if supposedly there's about 2.3 reviews on average per game last year for targeting. If this rule stays in effect from what they tell us, I bet there's going to be 5 to 6 a game.
What about your head being up? Because is that something that's a point of emphasis when you're coming in for a
Your
tackle?
face?
Yeah.
And so here's what we told our players, and I'm probably the worst person to ever give an example of how to tackle. But if you keep your head up, which you should, they're trying to make the game safer, and they should make the game safer. Okay, if you don't lower your head and use that crown area, and if you always hit from here down, you should never have any trouble. You should always be good. But that's not what guys have done coming from high school into this level, because they don't make the highlights unless they, decleat somebody. In the long run, it's a good plan, because the other area that's not being talked about that I think you're going to see more than maybe offensive and defensively is on special teams. So when a punt returner is returning the ball and going around a corner, and the guys trying to tackle him are chasing him like this, and then you have guys coming from back here that get in front of him at the last second and decleat him and knock him upside down, that's automatic ejection now. And for the most part, it should be, because that is a defenseless player, and sometimes those guys get hit by a guy that's had a 20-yard head start running. And that, I agree with that. So now they're going to have to try to just get in front. I call it a drive-by, kind of a drive-by block, and they can avoid that collision. And I think that's a positive thing for college football.
Is that how you coach them now? Is that what you tell them to do that, your guys?
Yes. We have not been real good at it, but we're going to have to get a lot better at it, because if you peel back and you decleat somebody, you're out. I mean, it won't even, it doesn't make a difference what part of the body you use, because you have essentially launched your body at a defenseless player. Because, those guys can't see you coming. They're chasing some fast guy, and all of a sudden somebody blindsides them. Even though they're in the front, it's still a defenseless player, and I think that's a good rule.
Blocking too, I mean, like, are there occasions when somebody, like, you can...
Crack block?
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about earlier with Tylen. See, Tylen was really good at it. And he had either 2 or 3 last year that were legal crack blocks, that this year they're automatic ejections, because he came back into a defenseless player. Did it in a bowl game a couple years ago against Colorado. It wasn't him. I don't know who did it. I can't remember.
Seals.
Who? Seals did it.
So you get in the way?
Crack block.
I mean, but if you get in that situation, it's better just to kind of like almost in basketball, set a screen or something.
No doubt. That's what you have to do. It can serve the same purpose. It's just not going to draw any excitement. It's not going to make the highlights. But it should serve the same purpose. So in the long run, you have to think, okay, if that's your kid that was just chasing the ball, trying to make a play, and got got drilled and got decleated, you wouldn't be real fired up about it. You still want him to play college football, so it's probably a good rule. And we'll learn. We're better. Look at the difference this year at the end of the year compared to just 3 or 4 years ago in reduced number of hits from here up. It's gone way down. So the rule's actually serving its purpose. It's just going to be a little sketchy getting there. And I think this year will be tough because they're really going to enforce it.
25 years ago, Coach Jones's highest paid coordinator made $58,000. Now, entry-level money at this level is $200,000, whatever it is, for an assistant. So, and OSU reportedly last year was in the top 25 or 28 in the country in staff pay. Was the administration here always pretty good about working with you on staff pay, or was it a gradual process?
I have never been denied any money for an assistant coach. Now, we're reasonable with what we pay. We're all overpaid for what we do. But it's just a supply and demand. It's the market, and that's the way it is. And it's a competitive market, and we all know this. You can look across the country everywhere. And if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And it goes from staff to administration to the top, you know. It's just like there's some talk out there now. You know, somebody was writing an article. John was writing an article on President Hargis, you know, and he gets it. And everybody has to be on the same page, but I have not asked, I've not been denied anything that I've ever asked for an assistant coach from Coach Holder. But I'm pretty reasonable in what we pay. If I needed more...
You know what you got to work with.
No, I just try to stay within a reasonable budget based on if I ever have to do something. I mean, call it like it is like it is. Like I needed to take care of Dunn this year, so everybody would quit trying to hire him. Well, I need to have funds available, and it needs to be reasonable to do it because I can't all of a sudden pay him more than I'm paying coordinators. So I have to do the best I can to be reasonable, to pay them fair for what they're worth, but also not just blow it out of the water. But if you don't stay in the market, then you're going to be playing musical chairs with coaches because somebody's going to get in the market real quick. So it's just, it's crazy. And it's not going to change because people want to win. People just want to win.
Yeah. Are you concerned at all that there might be a breaking point at some point?
Not really. It's one of the things I don't have to worry about. And the truth be known, if it ever did get to a point where they tried to regulate it, somebody would find a way around it. Right? They would say, well, we'll pay you this much here, and then you get 2 cars and you get a house. But we're only going to pay you $250. Somebody will find a way around it.
So the guy down at Waterbury let him do a radio show for $150,000.
See, it's the American way. You're figuring it out.
Your offense seems to have the weapons it needs to keep doing what it's doing, regardless of who plays quarterback. We talked about this the other day. The Big 12 looks like it's, with the new coaches coming in and some of the other things going on, it looks like it's shifting a little bit. Like the run may be more in vogue this year. Do you see defenses making any kind of shift right now? We talked about this in practice the other day. Because coaches get sick at some point in time of explosive plays going on left and right.
It turns the circle, right? It's turning a circle now. You're seeing, I mean, the game's simple. 100 years ago when I played, there was 2 guys in the backfield and a tight end and 2 wideouts. And then they started taking 1 guy out. So then defense started playing with a nickelback, right? Meant the 5th guy, instead of that 5th guy being a linebacker, you take a fullback out and put a fast guy out there. I'm taking a linebacker out and putting a fast guy out there. I'm going to match him up. Then 10 years ago, we started saying, "Yeah, forget that. We'll take that big guy out and put another fast guy out there." And so the defense said, well, if you're going to put a fast guy out there, then I'm going to take a backer out and I'm going to put a fast guy out there. Now I got dime. I got 6 DBs. You got 4 wideouts. Everybody's matching everything up. That's all it is. The game's the same. It's just a matchup principle. Now, particularly in this league, you have head coaches and offensive coordinators who are trying to score every play, not every series. They're trying to score every play. And so defenses now, to a certain extent, are playing, they back up a lot more, and they're saying, we're going to try to gather and keep you contained somewhat, not give you big plays all the time. So you're getting fewer people up front and coming after you and more people back there. So now the offense has said, well, if you're going to do that, we're going to put another guy in here. And we're going to do more in here while y'all are back there. It's just a cat and mouse game. And it'll be interesting in this league to see what the thought is. I know what it's going to be from 6 teams. I just don't know the other 3 or 4 yet. But it'll be interesting to see what they do.
But you would love to run the ball more.
We run the ball
Deep
now.
down, I know.
Yeah, shoot. Yeah, I mean, I like running the ball. If I can turn around and hand the ball off to a good back, I got a better chance of being successful than if I have to protect, throw, and catch.
Back in the spring, you were talking about needing to find like 6 defensive linemen up front. Is when Antoine comes back, figure out it's early, but how do you feel about the defensive line? You still got to answer some questions here.
Don't have a clue right now because we only been in pad one day, and those guys haven't been out there and gotten tired and been hit, and all the things that we have to know about them right now, we don't have a clue. We don't, because they haven't done anything. A week from now, I should be able to say, so far, these 3 or 4 guys are holding up. But right now, I mean, we like their skill set. Their attitudes are good and things like that, but we don't know anything about these guys. And I haven't changed any on that. We need 6 guys to play as effective as the 4 did last year, somehow. Now, that's a tough task, right? Guy that's playing at Nebraska was a pretty good player. Brelford was a pretty good player. Jarrell was a pretty good player. So they've got a tall task, but it's who they are, and we're coaching them hard every day, and we'll know a lot more about them in a couple weeks, and then we'll certainly know a lot more about them the 1st of October.
Myron asked about Antoine. He's kind of interesting. You know, he was going to go here, and then whatever happened, happened. Now he's back here, and he's autistic. But I asked him just off the cuff, because he doesn't act autistic on the field. And he kind of told me it's like the guys that stutter. A guy may stutter, but when he's calling plays or singing, he quits stuttering. And when he's on the field, he says he doesn't feel autistic. Yet when you see him off the field, you know, he looks away from me. I covered him at Millwood. What's your interaction been like with Israel?
He's just a quiet kid. I would have never known he was if somebody didn't tell me. He's just quiet. He goes about his business. Yes, sir. No, sir. Very respectful. I don't even remember. Somebody told us during recruiting about it, and I don't know why they told us, but I would have never known. And even the 8 months that he's been here with us, I don't ever notice it. I mean, you go up to him, talk to him, carry on a conversation. He's just like everybody else. It's kind of nice because he doesn't talk a lot, you know. We got a lot of those guys that talk a lot, and he just goes about his business, does his job, and yes, sir, no, sir. And I personally don't think it affects his everyday life at all.
What are your expectations for Bundage coming into the season?
Bundage is he's in a minimal practice stage right now. He strained his back a little bit a month ago, and so we've cut back on him with what we're doing in practice. But he needs to be a mature player that it would be the opposite of what discussion we had with the defensive line, because we know what Calvin can do. We know where he comes from. We know what his strengths are. He's aggressive. He likes to hit. So he needs to lead us in those areas. We need a really 50 good plays a game from him, okay? He's experienced. He's been out there. He's developed. And so he needs to be a player that we can rely on based on his experience.
Now, is he expected to be pretty good going into the game?
He should be fine. I mean, where he's practicing at a normal pace in a couple weeks. We could put him out there now and do it, but he's a veteran guy, and which I know you just got here, but if you would watch him play, he's not a guy you worry about hitting. Like, he could not practice, and he's still going to hit. And, you know, some guys, you got to get them out there every day because, you know, violence is not a big part of their life. Well, he doesn't have any issues with hitting. I mean, I think you could make him non-contact up until a few days before the game, and he'd be fine. So with him, we don't really worry about that, but I would like for him to be full speed for his conditioning, if not more than anything else, 2 weeks out.
Does having a couple veteran corners allow you to do some things, maybe take some chance to leave those guys by themselves?
They should be better, and I have noticed just in the first 3 days, because we do throw a lot, because we can't hit a lot, so we do more throwing in the first few days because we don't have shoulder pads on. I've noticed that with 4 and 8 and 24 and 20 and 31, even 3, all those guys, they're in proximity more in coverage than they have been. And what I mean by that is when you're covering good receivers in this league and you're asked to play in man coverage, to be in good proximity and battling for the ball, to a certain extent, is really all you can ask for, because they have the advantage. They know where they're going and you don't. You need pressure to get to the quarterbacks, a couple other things to happen. You might win your share of battles, but you take a really good corner and a really good wideout, and they go head-to-head one-on-one. This wideout ought to win 7-3. Okay? So I see our guys in the last few days in proximity more in their coverages than they have been in the last few years because of experience, would be my guess.
You mentioned in the spring the idea of moving Dylan outside just in case, because those other guys aren't as experienced. 3 days in, have you seen anything from those other guys that would make you not need to do that?
I think that the basketball team that plays over there for us on the left side, I think they're going to be okay, that Dylan can stay inside. I don't know all their names. They're all 6'6", though. I call them the basketball team. But no, I do. I'm just joking with Jordan and CJ and Pat. But I think they're doing okay. But again, I don't want to overstep because they haven't played. So we'll see how they're doing in a couple weeks. And then can they make a play? We can throw Stoner out there on the drop of a hat and he'll be fine. He knows what to do.
Braden Johnson, does he fit more with that inside group or with that outside group?
Who's that?
Braden Johnson.
He's inside. I mean, he's played some outside, and we do some things from a formation that put him out there, but most of the time he's going to be inside.
3 years ago, when you finished your signing day news conference, Bundage hadn't announced, or, you know, he had an afternoon deal.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your level of surprise when he signed?
I felt pretty good about him coming here. He does have siblings that have gone away to school, a long ways from home. So I had a little bit of concern there. I knew he was really close with his mom, and his mom worked a lot, and I thought at some point he would like to stay close based on her, but I've been wrong a lot in recruiting. And his siblings have gone away to school, so that concerned me some, but I thought, I mean, there was probably a 70% chance he was going to sign with us.
Mike, last year, he wasn't the only one, but the penalty problems you had, personal foul penalties and everything, he had a few of those.
Mm-hmm.
How has he handled that? I mean, in terms of discussions, or did he approach anybody and say, look, I got to be better than that? Or
Calvin?
Yeah.
Calvin doesn't talk much. Calvin listens, and he's one of those young men that sometimes you think that he's not listening to you because you don't get much of a response out of him, but he is. He listens. They've all been told about their discipline and reasons that we put ourselves in bad situations last year. Not only him, all of them. And as we progress through and guys start to get fatigued over the next 4 to 6 practices, and we get in deep into practice and it's hot and we're pushing them and really stressing their bodies, we're going to really stay on them about the discipline that we were lacking last year. And he has been told just along with all the other guys about that.
What was it about Jordan McCray that made you guys want to use a grad scholarship on a position that you guys are already deep and talented at?
Who's that? Well, we lost a knucklehead. Went to the Texans, Tyron. he came in all of a sudden and said, I'm out. And I was a little bit shocked. I guess I'm never shocked anymore. And I say that, you know, he's been tremendous for us. I sure wish he would have stayed. I felt he could have caught 80 balls this year on the other side of 2. When he left, we just felt like we needed a little maturity because of the guys that he mentioned. None of those guys have played. So you like their body, you like their effort, you like what they bring to the table, but we don't know anything about them. Jordan has at least played at this level and has had a lot of reps and had some success. So he gave us a little bit of maturity at that position. And if we need the young guys to be brought along, then we have somebody that we can use and bring them along.